Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth day of the Calumet Heritage Partnership's Calumet Heritage Conference. And this is the 21st annual Calumet Heritage Conference. The goal of this year's conference is to highlight some of the diverse voices and stories that collectively tell the larger story of the national significance of the Calumet region. We're going to hear about efforts to save and interpret our region's heritage, to help us to understand who built and how the region was built. Not just say the buildings, but the culture and the communities and all of that. And we want to better understand the living landscape that we now inhabit. We want to thank our organizational sponsors, the Calumet Collaborative, the Field Museum, and ArcelorMittal. The Field Museum and the Calumet Collaborative gratefully acknowledge ArcelorMittal for their support of programs in the Calumet region. The Calumet Heritage Conference is a project of the Calumet Heritage Partnership, and I want to thank the board of CHP and the program committee for their work in putting the conference together. And we want to express special gratitude for our speakers, presenters, and all of you for joining in. If you are interested in donating to support CHP's efforts in the conference, or you want to purchase some of the gear, the swag that we have, like t-shirts and hats, I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat for that over the course of the evening, and you will find them there. The Calumet Heritage area is really that whole region from the southeast side of Chicago way over to the Michigan border. And getting that region recognized as a national heritage area is an effort that's been going on for over a decade now. It's a bi-state effort with organizations from Illinois and Indiana collaborating on it. And I know we don't often hear a lot about Indiana-Illinois collaboration, but it does happen. It's Calumet Heritage Partnership partnering with the Calumet Collaborative and the Field Museum. We've been working to expand the activities and to pursue congressional designation to become a heritage area. And together, we've accomplished a lot to lift up the region and its national significance in the last few years. And you can see on this slide, here's about 7 or 8 things that we've achieved in just the last, I would say, like 5 years towards this goal. So here we have the conference schedule. You can see that we've been running the gamut from thinking about the philosophy of what makes a ruin. We've talked about exhibitions and collections. We're talking about storytelling today. And throughout, we've been celebrating the important history of the region. So the recording of today's program and all the other ones are going to be posted on the Calumet Heritage area website and the Calumet Heritage Partnership website. So you're going to be able to go back to either of those two locations and watch them anytime you want. There are full packets of conference materials on the Calumet Heritage Area website, and I will drop that in the chat as well first, once we're done with the introductions here. And that's where you can check the schedule for the whole conference. You can see descriptions of the different sessions and read about the biographies of the presenters. You've probably already figured out as attendees that you are not able to talk, to unmute yourselves in a Zoom webinar. Muting keeps the focus on the single speakers and ensures a quality recording. If you have questions for the presenters, please put them in the Q&A. You scroll your cursor down to the bottom of the screen, you click on the Q&A button, and there'll be a place for you to put your questions in. If you have questions or concerns about the Zoom itself, please put those in the chat and I'll respond to them. If you have questions about the conference or the wider Calumet region, you can put those in the chat as well, and I will get to them as I can. I should say, because I think I failed to do so at the start, I am Mario Longoni from the Field Museum. I'm an urban anthropologist. I've been working in the region for about, I would say 10 to 15 years now, doing different kinds of community building. So today, we have the Gary Anthology, a conversation with West Side. So the title says West Side writers. I'm going to amend that to say artists. I think the folks here are really multifaceted, so we're going to expand that category. And their moderator today is Sam Love, who I think a lot of you probably know. I'll give you his bio in a second, but I'm going to read you a little bit of the description of the session first. Gary Anthology editor Samuel Love is joined by three artists whose roots run through this often overlooked section of the city. They will discuss how community and personal histories have shaped their respective practices and where the artistic, the cultural, ecological features of Gary's broader West Side fits within the general history of the Steel City. So we're going to hear that, and I want to tell you a little more about Sam. He is the editor of Gary Anthology. Do you have a copy there to hold up, Sam? It's from Belt Publishing, and it's just out this year in 2020. He's a social and civic practice artist who organizes public projects that connect communities, their cultural and ecological histories through publishing, multimedia installations, and performance. And you can read more about him in the conference materials. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sam, and he will introduce his panelists.
Thank you very much, Mario. I'm going to play around with my screen a little bit. We'll get that going. I want to first of all say thank you to the Calumet Heritage Partnership for having us on. It's a tough time for artists and performers right now, so any opportunity we can get to talk about what we do and work our magic is most appreciated, and especially this year, as artists and creatives and performers have been hit really hard. We've all seen a lot of our opportunities and incomes disappear, so that's something that I'm sure is going to come up as we discuss today. I also want to say special thank you to David Klein, who's been helping us with all the technical and digital aspects, so thank you so much, David. Originally, we were supposed to have 3 on the panel. We currently have 2, but the nice thing is the one who's not here, I could at least read a bit from her story in here and talk a little bit about what she does. But I'm honored today to be joined by 2 people who are not only whose roots run through the west side of Gary and are talented artists, but are also friends and are also have just brought some of the most meaningful creative collaborations that I've had out here in Gary. And I just got a text message from Tara saying I'm on. So I don't see Tara yet, but we'll figure it out. So Tara, are you there? Going once, going
Sam,
twice?
I will go look in the participants and see if she came in as an audience member and promote her.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Then while you do that, I'll talk a little bit briefly about the West Side, and we'll get to our esteemed panel today. So let me introduce the panel first. We're waiting to hear from Tara Poetry in Motion Cooks. Tara is originally from Chicago, but relocated to Gary a few years ago. And she's one of those people, everyone thinks she's actually from here. She has just done so well in this community and done so much for this community as a poet and an artist. Tara wanted to let us know she is the creator, coordinator, and host of the Veterans Valentine event at the Northwest Indiana Veterans Home in downtown Gary. And she started that 3 years ago. And she wanted us to know that it occurs in April, not February. She's also the host of the Uncle Buck radio show on Tuesdays on 88.7, which is out of the Gary Career Center, with another good friend and contributor, Daniel Summers, and they are a hoot together. I really enjoyed being on their show. We're also going to hear from Elva Crystal Wilson, the gem of Shaolin, who I've known since she was, I think, 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And yeah, you are one of the most professional people, and I think you are one of the most thoughtful people I've ever worked with. I'm embarrassing everybody right now. Crystal and I partnered on the Gary Poetry Project, Gary Nature Project, and many other things. So we'll hear from her. And then last, of course, but not least, a woman who needs a very brief introduction. Kim Mizell is the first lady of house music. Did you know house music has its roots in Gary? It does. And a lot of times things that started in Gary end up getting claimed or labeled Chicago. And Kim's career is a great example of how you can just I think how Gary is an international place to begin with, but how I think this place prepares us for that kind of platform. So I don't know if we found Tara, so Crystal would be okay if we
Yeah.
started with you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm going to read your little bio in the book, and we'll get going. Alva Crystal Wilson, known professionally as the Gem of Shaolin, is an African-American, Afro-Dominican rapper, poet, singer, songwriter, director, writer, and activist. Her content brilliantly touches on a combination of cerebral, enigmatic, yet earnest subject matter. As I already said, she's one of the most thoughtful people I've ever worked with. We did dozens of poetry and nature workshops in Gary together. And what I looked forward so much with working with you is before the event, we would talk about best practices and approaches. And then during the event, we would check in with each other to make sure things were going and we were each supported. And then after the event, we'd really talk about how it went and what we could do and how are we actually reaching the young people in this city. We've traveled to Chester, Pennsylvania as part of an artist exchange together, and plenty of time for conversations on that trip. So I'm glad that you and I can take, this conversation, this relationship, this dialogue we have, and have an audience listen in on that tonight. So first of all, it's great to actually see you.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you too, Sam.
Yeah, and I'll warn all the listeners, I'm friends with all these people, so it's gonna, even though we're separated tonight, it's hopefully get down home that kind of friendly spirit I've always seen in Gary. So how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So, well, do you mind saying a little bit about yourself, and then we'll launch into a discussion about what we do here in Gary.
Yeah, so I'm a poet from Gary, Indiana. Originally just a poet. I've been writing since I was about 11 years old. I was competing in poetry competitions by the age of 16, and I've been performing since the age of 14 with poetry. So one thing that I do know about this area is that the children here are very, very talented. And I know everybody says that about where they're from, but I just know it to be true. Like there's not a whole lot of programs for them. There's not a whole lot of things to do other than the once like art school that was in Gary. But honestly, like these children have like a lot to offer. I've taught workshops with Sam, of course, and I've done like some by myself too, just at like different churches and places like that. And like the one thing that always gets me is like you take the quiet one in the back and you see what they write at the end of the writing prompt, and it's always something amazing. Like there's so much like hidden talent in this area. So yeah.
I remember we did an event at one of the schools near downtown, and by the end of it, those kids were lined up asking for your autographs. You remember
Oh
that?
my God.
Y'all were
Yeah,
shocked.
yeah.
I mean, that is a testament to that spirit you speak of, but you all were so shocked, and I'm like, no, this is just the start of it. These kids really see that. Could you talk a little bit about, let's talk about those engagements, and then we'll get around to your West Side roots. I'm watching the time here. So why don't we talk a little bit about the Gary Poetry Project and what we found while we were out doing all these poetic explorations.
Well, I think for me, it just showed and like affirmed my thought that like these kids and teenagers had a lot to say about where they were from. Like they weren't just apathetically going about their lives and living in Gary. Like they really had thoughts and ideas. One that sticks out to me, and you probably know who I'm about to mention. I think her name was like Destiny or something. And like she had so much to say, and I think she might have been all of like 12 or 11 or something. And like a lot of these kids, I think they just need a lot of intentional dialogue. Like they need a lot of intentional conversation and people asking them questions, and they give you the answers to them. And
Yeah.
I think the Gary Poetry Project and the lines of poetry we were able to collect from those children and teenagers, and even some of the adults, and the elders, it's just proof of that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great multi-generational project as well. Well, let's talk about your roots in Gary then. You told me you grew up in a neighborhood, and this is one of the things I love about Gary. There's the major neighborhoods people have heard of,
Mm-hmm.
Tolliston, Miller, Glen Park, but there's all these smaller, more informal neighborhoods. You told me you grew up in the bottom side. Where is that?
So like that's basically, so it depends on who you talk to, but pretty much like the area from like the village all the way up until like when you get to Glen Park is kind of considered bottom side for most people.
Mhm.
So I grew up primarily in Gary, Indiana. First like in these like little apartments that was like right behind Caesar's Pizza, and then like primarily on like 10th and Pierce.
Mhm.
And I would say that I had a very unique experience because I lived primarily in Gary at what was considered like our family home, and I ended up going to Maryville School District. So for me, it was always really interesting because I would be at school and I would have a very different experience from when I was at home and with my friends and everything. And I would just see the difference and like just the lack of like equality that kind of happened just on a school level. Like some of the programs I was able to do at Maryville High School, they didn't have available, at the Gary High School. So that was a really interesting experience. And then you just see things like the whole like brain drain. Like I was a victim of that. Like I remember when I was like in school and them just basically telling my mom like you have to get her out of the Gary school system. Like she's too smart for this, which is a sad thing, but it happens to a lot of the kids there. And then you lose all this talent and this potential because the programs that they have available sometimes just aren't really doing the job for what the community needs on a school level. So I think that to me was a real interesting experience. And then just seeing things like my friends and stuff, like some of them, they felt like the only hope for them to go to school was like to join the military or do something like that. So it was interesting. It was very interesting upbringing. I got a lot of juxtaposition in my upbringing. So
Mhm. Mhm. How do you think that gets into your craft then?
I think I know how to play the middle really well.
Okay.
Like I think I know how to be like, as far as my writing, I try to be very complex, like because that's the type of writing I like. But I think I know how to bring that complexity down and also be very earnest in my writing. So if it shapes my writing in any way, I would say it's that like I know how to touch the heart, even if they don't understand what I'm saying all the
Mhm.
time, because I know
Yeah.
I speak riddles a lot.
Well, you got such a big fan base around here. You've been putting out a lot of videos too, so you've been pretty busy over the past, well, this year. I guess we could just look at it that way. You want to talk a little bit about some of the work?
You said what?
You've been doing a lot of videos. You've had a couple of videos come out this year. Uh,
Hmm.
do you want to talk a little bit about the work you've been doing professionally this year? And then we can kind of get into how COVID's affected that.
Yeah, so I was actually able to do something really cool in Chicago this year, which was like the biggest crowd I did. I spoke for like 30,000 people at this big rally from Union Park to Cabrini Green. And I've been putting out a lot of like freestyle videos. So I also do hip hop as well. So I've been keeping busy with that as well too. So yeah.
Great. And folks, if you want to check out her work, a couple of links for you. If you go to any social media, The Gem of Shaolin, and that is SHAOLIN. Had to look to make sure. And also, if folks want to give support on Cash App, they can find you at $AK Wilson93. Again, we've all been hit really hard right this year, lack of, all these opportunities disappearing. So we've had to get really resourceful, and we've had to just ask people directly for support sometimes. So if anyone out there is able to do that, you can help her that way. PayPal, her email is akcreate.mgmt@gmail.com. So you can reach out to her that way. And, I had meant to open with talking a little bit about Gary's West Side, and I'll get to that in just a little bit, maybe after we're finished. But I wanted to ask you about a mutual friend of ours who was from the West Side of Gary, Davine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that was my mentor. So I actually met Davine at the age of 16. I was at a writing workshop, and I just remember she had like the coolest hairstyle I'd ever seen. So like it was all shaved on the sides, and then she had like dreadlocks going down the middle, like curly. And I just remember telling my friend like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to hear her poem. Like I just know she's gonna be so good." And I was right. And I think at the end of the show, I just like was making a beeline to try to get to her because I'm just like, oh, I have to tell her how amazing she is. And then she shot me and was like, oh my gosh, like I really loved your poem. And from that day forward, like we were just connected at the hip. And she was a mentor to me. And she, you know, she really put me on her shoulders. And like, you know, up until her passing recently this year, she would always just find me work. If I wasn't doing well, she would figure out how to get me doing well and get me out there again. And she was a Gary native. Like she gave her heart and soul to this place. Truly, truly gave her heart and soul to this place. So
Yeah,
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 she's gonna be missed. She's gonna be
yeah,
real missed.
yeah. A West Side resident as well, literally on a neighborhood called West Side, which makes it very confusing when you try to point out. But yeah,
She
I
also
think
has a book. She also has a book, a children's book called Imani and the Masquerade Slam. That's available at Barnes and Noble, like, and on Amazon as well too.
yeah, yeah, no, just a huge loss. And I think she also just points to the amount of talent that's in this city. And again, sometimes we have this odd relationship with Chicago, and the west side of Gary is very close to Chicago. And sometimes things can get subsumed into that. Sometimes we just have more opportunities to go up to Chicago, live, work, make money, make connections. But Davine um, always had time for you, always had time to be creative in this city. And she was someone who had a career also half the time in Philadelphia. So
Yeah,
yeah,
she went to Temple University in Philadelphia.
mm-hmm.
Actually, a little known fact, she actually helped edit the album for Jill Scott, that first album. I think it was like Sounds in E minor or something like that. The first
Sure.
album, Jill Scott. Yeah, she helped edit that. So
Well, I'm glad we got that scoop on the program tonight because I thank you so much because I wanted to make sure she was commemorated in a format like this. This is just again such a huge loss for our community here in Gary. And Crystal, you are a living embodiment of that, and you're your own spirit as well. So, anything coming up immediately that you'd want to share with our guests out here tonight?
so I am working on a few different things. So I've been, working on a EP project, and it's gonna be called Pixel. So I was looking to release it by the end of this year, but COVID kind of threw me for a loop. So I'm looking for mid next year. And I'm also working on a poetry book called Golden Like a Poetry. So that's coming up soon for me. So I hope to have your support.
You'll have my support. I can definitely tell you
Thank
that.
you.
We'll get that official here. Always happy to support the work you're doing. And thank you so much. I hope you can hang around a little bit because I'm sure we'll have some questions later on tonight.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be on here.
All right, cool. So that was Elva Crystal Wilson. She's known to me as Crystal, my friend. The Gem of Shaolin. Check her out. And I see Tara has joined, and she is currently muted. So I don't know, Tara, you're waving. Can you unmute, or can somebody unmute Tara, and we'll get her on? Uh-oh, she's talking. Tara, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're muted. Yeah. There you
Did not want to cooperate with me today. That's the problem.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. I figured something was up, but we'd all end up here in the end. It's good to see you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy I could get on because I was on from the very beginning, but Zoom was not allowing me to come on or even show up. So
yeah.
I can hear you talking to me. I'm like, no, I'm here.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm glad I didn't say anything unflattering, or I hope you didn't think I said.
Well, I'm glad too.
Because you know where I live and I know where you live, and we'd all be in trouble, right?
I don't think you would do that, Sam.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It really is. And as I had said earlier, Tara, you're someone who we all thought you were born and bred here. And you do talk about in your story how you would come down to Miller a little bit, and I think it was the 70s or 80s. But you just moved down here in the past, how many years?
It's going on 6 years. It'll be close to 6 years.
And I think to me what that represents is, we have this city here that so many people say is dying. And the facts do show we are losing population. But what I've been amazed by in Gary is how on a regular basis I'm meeting new people, new creative people who actually live here. They're not just coming around to claim it and they live somewhere else. They actually live here. And your story in the anthology, and I'm so glad to talk about it, because it came together in so many interesting ways. There's poetry, there's music to it, there was an interview component, and there was some prose that you wrote. So before we get into that, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience a little bit?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I am so happy to join you guys. And hey, Crystal. Yes, she truly is a gem. So, and I heard you guys talking about Davine, so I'm glad that you mentioned her. Yes, it was such a loss, and I miss her. But again, I am Tara Cooks, aka Poetry in Motion. I am a writer, mentor, recording artist, radio host. I host events. I do a number of things. So I wear many, many hats. And every time I try to put some of the hats down, it seems like I have to pick them back up again. So, but I'm okay with that. It keeps me busy, and it just kind of ties everything together for me. But I am happy that I did make Gary my home. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. And like you said, I have been coming here since I was a child, through the 70s and the 80s. And so knowing that I actually had a history to Gary before I actually moved here was very interesting for me.
So there's two things that I find really interesting that while we have you here, I'd like to get you to talk on. And one is just the type and the quality and the quantity of the work you're doing here. And then the other, which was an aspect of your story in the anthology that I just loved. In fact, Tara, I had to create a whole section around your story. And you know, it follows the poetry section in the book, and it's in the section called Stories of the Land and the Environment. And I found some others that were similar. So it was all centered around yours, though. There was so much in that. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the nature that we have on the west side of Gary specifically as well. So you got a preference which one you want to tackle first, work or nature?
I kind of find that they kind of intertwine themselves. So
okay, I'll let you roll with it then. Why don't would you mind telling them about Lake?
I will start with the nature. Well, first of all, you did a wonderful job with the book. You definitely, so thank you to Bell Publishing most definitely for doing this, but you did an excellent job with editing, and I feel very honored to hear you say that. But I was so surprised when I saw how you put my story and the poem in the book. It was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But as far as the nature goes, I made this post on Facebook one day, and I was really kind of joking around, but I kind of knew how people was going to take it, so it was funny to me the whole time. But I made a post about all of the animals that I've seen since I moved out here, and someone commented, "Girl, where the heck you live at?" And I said, "In the woods, apparently." So, but,
on the west.
I mean, because I'm sorry.
In the woods on the west side of Gary.
Yeah, so I was kind of messing with people when I told people that I got into my car and there was a squirrel living in my car. I was only joking when I said it, but I was messing with people. So, but really, I hope that I'm saying it, pronouncing it correctly. I believe they call it egrets. It's E-G-R-E-T.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I was going down Airport Road one day, going towards East Chicago, and I turned to look at the tree as you're going past the lake, and it kind of looks like it's you have the lake over there, and the lake is so beautiful along Airport Road, but you see a lot of dead trees there in one section. It looks like it's kind of dead, but to the wildlife, it wasn't dead. And the reason why I especially say it, and the reason why I really find it interesting, is because there was a tree that was full of egrets. And it's like, and I was like, wow. I mean, because I was like, I know those are not swans, they're too big to be certain other type of birds, but I had never seen an entire tree full of them, and I thought it was wonderful. And, just yesterday, I finally got a really good shot of a falcon. And yes, when I saw it, it was actually at the career center. So that's, you know, that's a little bit further to the west side, but I have seen falcons on the west side. As a matter of fact, I think there was a peregrine falcon, and if anybody saw this movie, I think I forgot the name of the movie, but it was a children's movie, and the one of the main characters, her name was Mrs. Peregrine, but it's actually the bird is actually called a peregrine falcon, and this bird was really smart. It knew that I was trying to get close to it, so it moved from tree to tree, and every time I got closer, it would go to another tree. So then finally, it was like, you know what? I'm going to go across the street. So it was like watching me, and when I tried to go across the street, it decided to fly off. So it's definitely got some good instincts. You can't say that the birds are stupid; they're not. But you know, I think one of the most hilarious encounters I've had actually with the wildlife out here, because I have seen some red foxes, and that was the first time I've seen one up close, as well as a coyote. But I had an encounter with two wolves. This one, now, if you ever watch cartoons, I'm pretty sure you can relate to seeing this. I'm going to my vehicle, and I don't see them. So they're in the parking lot. There's two wolves walking in the parking lot, but their fur was so shaggy. They kind of remind you of, they look like wild Alaskan Huskies.
Big.
If you can imagine what, you know, like a wild version of Alaskan Husky is, that's what these wolves look like. There were two of them walking in the parking lot, and I did not see them until I got close to my vehicle. And I looked at them, and I was like, "Oh snap, a wolf!" And the wolf looked at me like, "Oh snap, a human." So we, you know, so one of them, you know, kind of jumped back like I surprised it, and I jumped back because it surprised me. But then I said, you know what? I'm just going to ease on over here to my vehicle. And I just kept going. So I kept my eyes on the wolf, and the wolf kept his eyes on me. It's like, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm watching you. Yeah, while you're watching me. So it was like, and I got in my bed, but it was like, it was a little bit thrilling and scary at the same time. But when I told people about it, it kind of freaks people out. And they're looking at me like, you find this funny? I'm like, yeah, I found it funny because it was a cartoon moment to me. So, but you know, it's those things, and you know, I always tell people, just because you see wildlife does not mean that they're going to attack you. You know, it's not like you see in the movies. You know, the movies are meant to scare you.
Right,
But
and
otherwise, it's pretty cool.
yeah, I was going to add, so there are a number of nature preserves on the west side of the city. Clark and Pine, Pine Station, the Shirley Hines Land Trust has Ivanhoe South, the Nature Conservancy has Ivanhoe North. So there are these green corridors that encircle that part of town. And the Gary Green Urbanism Department is trying to, you know, make these green corridors, more green infrastructure to connect it. So I wouldn't be surprised. I live in Miller, and there's a discussion if people have seen a wolf in Miller or not. And I'm going to tell you, it had to have been a wolf. I saw something out near the lake. It was so big. And I see plenty of coyotes. They get a little too close out here sometimes, but this thing was double the size of it. It was just amazing. Tara,
Yeah, wolves are pretty big.
I wanted to read a short passage from your story and have you comment on it, because I think this is just wonderful. I think you nailed it. And I think this is a line that surprises a lot of people.
Okay.
I was asked if Gary was a flavor, what would it be? I said vanilla, because you can add so many things to it. Some people may say that vanilla is plain. It's not plain. And of course, the bean is black. Vanilla has a flavor of its own, but it also complements so many other flavors. That's the way I see Gary. It's not as simple as you think. You mind commenting on that very astute comment?
Thank you. Well, I had the pleasure of being a part of the Gary Canvassing project, and there were other artists that was involved, and that was one of the questions that was posed to us. And you know, fortunately, I got to answer the question first, because everybody else is like, darn, she took my answer. That was a really good answer. Man, why you have to say that? So, but it was just an instinctual thing for me to say vanilla, because, well, I love vanilla ice cream. You know, some people think, oh, vanilla is too plain. But no, I think you can mix vanilla in with so many things and it tastes good with it. It works well with it. It's like, it still has its own flavor. yet you could still taste the other flavors or add or enhance the other flavors. And I kind of feel like Gary has been my vanilla because I was not planning to come to Gary when I first came to Gary. I came to Gary pretty much on a whim because of Cy Smith. He talked me into coming here, and I was like, Gary is not on my radar. But once my youngest son actually said something to me that made me see things differently, and once I saw it differently, that's when I began to, and honestly, I never even thought about Gary as being my vanilla until this very moment. But that's exactly what it is because Gary has complimented me. It blends well with me. I blend well with it, and we complement each other from the way I see it. And, because it's allowed me to be me, but at the same time, grow and enhance who I am and what I do and what I'm about. So it is, like I said, it's kind of vanilla ice cream because you've got so many things here in Gary. I grew up hearing so many stories about Gary. I mean, but you've got, sure, there's a lot of things that are here that are like many other cities, but at the same time, Gary seemed to have a flavor of his own as well. So it just kind of, people bring, I guess you could say I'm bringing my flavor to Gary, but
Oh,
Gary's got his own flavor too.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Do you want to say just a couple short things about some of the work that you've done here that you find most rewarding or most enjoyable?
Yes. Well, I enjoy being at the radio station because I am with WGBE, and it's like I've been there for a few years now, and it's something that I never expected to do. Not something I plan to do as well, but I've I enjoy it. I enjoy the people that I either meet, being doing the radio show, or the people that I know or meet and have the opportunity to have them as a guest on the show because it's like I get to learn so many things, I get to see so many things, and I like to put information, whether it's cultural information or resource information out there to the public. For example, just this past Tuesday, we had Judge Julie Cantrell from Lake County Court on the show. And the reason why she was there was because she was talking about Veterans Court. Because I had the opportunity, I work with Stagecoach Productions, which is a nonprofit organization, but they're doing a lot, it's entertainment wise as well as mentoring and community wise. So everything that they do, I'm able to use my skill set to enhance that, pretty much whatever I encounter. And I'm really enjoying that. But the thing that I found amazing was that because I was connected with Stagecoach Productions, I had the opportunity to actually attend a Veterans Court graduation because I didn't even know that there was a Veterans Court until recently. And it was an amazing thing to see because these are actually veterans who have gotten in trouble with the law, but going through Veteran Court gives them an opportunity to get their lives back together, to get themselves together, to to undo sort of whatever damage they've been done. And I had the chance to there was one graduate, there was 24 graduates, and this was less than 2 weeks ago. But there was one participant in particular, on his ceremony, when they called his name, they played a video that his kids had sent to the court saying, "Thank you for giving us our dad back." And I that was just so warming, but it was definitely special. So Judge Cantrell was at the radio station this past Tuesday, well, actually yesterday, talking about what Veteran Court does and what it's for. And it was actually something that started from someone started in New York, I believe in 2010. And there's more now. It has taken, I believe there's 4 of them in the state of Indiana who do Veterans Court, but it's definitely a great program. So if there's any veterans out there who needs this type of services, they should definitely get in touch with Lake County Court. And what's even better is that because not all cities or all counties have it available, there are different locations that will accept people from other counties to give them that opportunity to be a part of this. And by my working with veterans, and I do find that extremely rewarding to work with the veterans. And a lot of people think that veterans are getting all of the benefits and the help that they need because they've served their country. But I have found that that's not true. That is not true. Some of them don't get, some of them haven't gotten benefits at all. Some of them don't get as much benefits as they should be getting. And I do mean, compensation as well. And some of them don't even utilize the medical services that they're entitled to because there's so much red tape that they have to go through, so much qualifications. You would think, well, you're a veteran, shouldn't you automatically qualify? Well, that isn't always true. And I'm hoping that, that some of that will change really soon. But in the meantime, until, everything else change or catch up and come along, 3 years ago, I created Veterans Valentine. And people automatically think when they hear Valentine, they think it's in February. No, it's not in February. It's in April. April 27th is the date that I have designated for Veterans Valentine. Unfortunately, next year, it will be probably on the 25th because the 27th is on a Tuesday and I don't want to mess with anyone's schedule. I want everybody to have a reason to come. But the purpose behind me starting Veterans Valentine is because it gives them, it's a free event for all veterans, and it gives them the opportunity to have food, live entertainment, resources, any resources, gifts, anything I can get my hands on, anything anyone is willing to donate or that I can purchase myself. I give these gifts out to the veterans, each and every one of them in attendance, and sometimes those that are not in attendance, because like one was hoping he could make it last year to it, but he couldn't because he lives in California. So I actually shipped some things to him. And because I really want him to be a part of that. I also gave out some little, some award certificates, and I was so happy that 2 days ago I spoke to First Master Sergeant Thomas, who was from Gary, but he moved to Indianapolis recently, and he's still in it. He's an active military member, but he told me that the plaque that I gave him last year, he has it on his desk right by his door, so every time he walks in and out, he see it. And I was like, that, that's great. Thank you, I appreciate that. But another component is that it gives the veterans an opportunity to have a day of enjoyment, something to remember the day by, as well, to take home. So it doesn't just end with the day, because they have something they can take with them and, keep around to look at. But one of the most important things is it gives them the opportunity to talk and share stories, or not if they don't want to, but with people of their, with their peers, with someone who understands what they're going through or what they've been through and what they're seeing. And what some people don't understand is just because someone is a veteran and they did not see action, it does not mean that they're not affected by it. And Judge Cantrell proved that point yesterday by something that she said on the show, because she had to come to understand that too. But she found out, that just because they wasn't actually in the war does not mean that they didn't see some horrible things or experience some things. Like someone who's in California, and he's a dental assistant, and she was like, well, how does that come into, what difference does that make? Well, it turns out that he saw patients that had to come in for reconstructive surgery from being in places where there is war, where he saw action. These people had to actually have their faces put back together. So, I mean, for you to think that that doesn't affect someone, to see someone like that on a regular basis, and knowing that that very well could have been you at some point in time too, if you think that doesn't affect you, you're sadly mistaken.
So Tara, how can folks follow you or support your work here in Gary? Real briefly.
Oh, well, they can definitely reach out to me personally by email at poetryinmotion41@gmail.com, and that's spelled POETRYN, no I, MOTION 41@gmail.com. And if you would be so happy to, so inclined to, to support the work that I do, because I still do a lot of volunteer work throughout the year for the veterans, make donations. I have a donations waiting to give right now. But you can also send something by Cash App with the $, capital TERRA, capital P, capital N, capital M, and the number 2. That's my Cash App, and or PayPal. PayPal me at PT Innovate, PTINNOVATE. And I definitely appreciate being a part of this. I'm so happy about this. And I hope that people will, also check me out, not only on the radio station on Tuesdays from 4 to 6, 88.7 FM, but I also have a book and music coming out. I have some music out right now, but I'm bringing some more music out. So the CD and the book should be out in the next month. I'm already working on volume 2 for my book. So, and I actually recorded my first inspirational piece. So I am looking forward to releasing that.
Keeping busy no matter what the circumstances. Well, you're a great advocate for so many people here in Gary. We're grateful to have you. We'll keep you. We want you around. So, Tara, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to our next guest. I think we have a little show and tell planned. So I could ask Ms. Kim Mizell if she wants to unmute herself.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, I kept myself muted in case I said anything, so I just wanted to be cautious.
How are you, my friend?
Hi, I'm very well. Hello to all the panelists. Hello, ladies, and the audience. I'm well, yes.
We are so fortunate that you're in Gary, you're in the United States right now and able to join us. So thank you for taking time. I know when you're at home, there's always a lot going on with family, what you do with education here in this city. So really grateful that you were able to take a little time to talk with us tonight.
It's great to be home. Absolutely great to be home. If I was across the pond, it'd be 3 a.m. and I'd be crazy looking.
I look like this all the time, so no matter what. Kim, I wanted to ask, this photograph on the cover of the Gary Anthology has brought up some very interesting reactions from people here. People, when they see it, they tend to look a little stunned. They don't know how to react to it. For those, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it's a boring everyday shot of a street in Gary that's not Broadway. It's not a bunch of rundown buildings. It's just daily life. But I know you immediately, because I get a lot of questions, where is this photo taken? You immediately knew. Do you want to tell our audience?
Immediately I identified with it. When you posted this on Instagram, I was in England and I was stuck there because we couldn't fly due to COVID. I was on my 3rd canceled flight trying to get home for various reasons, and you posted this, and it was like I was standing on the street because I know this street so well. This is my mom's go-to street to drive down to get to the house. I've walked up this street just like, I would literally walk down the middle of this road when I was a teenager in different ages to get home. I saw the church. I said, yeah, that's St. John Lutheran Church. There's Mr. Sherrod's auto mechanic shop. I was like, oh yeah, down there's Old Dixie Dairy. You can see the Old Dixie Dairy building. Also Arts Bakery, the church that would have been on the other side. I automatically knew the street. I said, that's 10th Avenue, going toward Taft Street, going toward home. And at that time, I was locked out of the States and wanted to go home. So I was standing there. I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, it's a sign from God. You'll soon go home.
That is exactly the kind of response I want to hear for the cover of this book, because it's almost a political act choosing what goes on the cover. I think some people were afraid it would be a picture of ruins or some kind of urban decay, and I wanted it to show the everyday here. So to hear you say that and to have that tie that you're in London and you're getting that feeling, to me, because it's my photograph actually, so it's very flattering.
Oh, is it a picture you took as well? Okay. I didn't realize it. I was just like,
yeah, it's about 10 years old. I was just because I wanted to get the church, St. John's Lutheran, which I'll throw out a little history and I'm going to turn it over to you. But St. John's Lutheran Church is the oldest congregation in northern Lake County. It was founded in the 1850s by German immigrants who also founded the community of Tolliston that we're going to talk about. Tolliston was its own village, and even for a brief while, it was its own incorporated town until Gary annexed it. And what I find so amazing about St. John's Lutheran Church is here you have this church that started in the 1850s as a German-speaking immigrant church, and today it is a vibrant Black Christian church. And
Lutheran.
Lutheran, right? And it's had this continuity all throughout. And you know, you were kind of, the stories you told me about being there and you know, your first professional debut in a way, singing there, it was, I guess you're part of that history that got it from one to the other and kept it going today. So when I was leading workshops for Miss Naomi Millender's youth groups there, I was, better believe I was playing those kids your music. So hopefully teaching the next generation, not only water safety, but house music. It was an interesting class. It always is with me. Would you tell us a little bit about that experience singing at St. John's Lutheran? Can we call that your debut?
Well, you can call it the debut if you want to, but I was about 4 or 5 years old. I used to go to Bible study there. I went to preschool there at 4 years old. I went to vocational Bible school, summer school there in the summer. Also, I was a brownie. So I went to, brownies was in that building. It was near, I mean, it's literally down the street from where I'm sat right now. So, and my mom had the local barbershop, which she kept open. She only retired maybe 15 years ago, about 15, 20 years ago. So we were, you know, in the Charleston area, and it was easy for her to take me to St. John's. They had so many programs for young people, and a trusted, you know, place for everybody. I can't think the pastor's name right now because I'm on camera, and of course I knew his name before the camera came on. But I remember so many, you know, just like making ice cream. Vanilla ice cream, as the young lady was talking about vanilla ice cream, which is another one of my favorite. I love vanilla, but I remember we would make ice cream there. We would obviously learn Bible studies. It was a safe place, loads and loads of children, because the community was full. I mean, really full in those days when I had my debut, from about 4 years old till about, I guess, 9 years old. I kept going there, maybe 10. And yeah, just really fond memories. I remember singing "We Are One in the Spirit, We Are One in the Lord," sitting on this lady's lap, and there's a photograph of all of us in that building that day. And I remember I had on my little pink coat with the flowers, and I must have been 5 or 6 years old. And we have that photograph, and it's frozen there. And I'm sitting on her lap, like looking and smiling brightly. And to this day, I remember the exact song we were singing, and that's what we were singing. So, yeah, good memories.
So I introduced you very briefly as the First Lady of House Music, which I think says enough. But I think we could take the audience from how do we go from that moment to you're over in London, pioneering.
Oh gosh, that's skipping all over Charleston.
Yeah.
That's skipping all over.
Well,
I was always into music.
Mm-hmm.
I was always into music, and there's music, you know, all throughout. Gary, that you open your window on a Sunday and you can hear Jubilee Gospel Church on a Sunday coming through your window just from the neighbors playing their music, getting ready to go to church, or the Jacksons down the street practicing at Steeltown Records. So I was really, I really had a thing for music, singing commercials and watching Soul Train and Ed Sullivan's show and Dick Cavett, all of these early things, which most people probably don't even remember these shows, or they may be too young to, you know, remember Ed Sullivan or Dick Cavett show or any of those other, those other shows. But it got me interested, and well, my mom wanted to make sure that I wouldn't throw my future or life away. So you had to go to college, university, and I got a few scholarships and went to different places just to sample it. But I found out about Columbia College in Chicago and started studying there. And I studied entertainment management and decided to do that. So that's what I did. And it brought me around a lot of internships that I started to do at different places in Chicago, commuting from Gary back and forth, back and forth. And I got involved with one internship with a place called DJ International Records. To make a long story short, I was like the publicist kind of person, but really a secretary. I poured the tea, the coffee, and this and that. And there was a very undeveloped like sound of music beginning to happen in these clubs, and it was really quite bad actually. I mean, it didn't have it was really, you know, quite amateurish, but people liked it, and we'd go into different clubs and watch these records happen. And what I noticed that they never had a singer, you know, anyone that could really sing on these broken beats, because they didn't really even have musicians on it. These were people operating computer. This is like pre-technical music, you know what I mean? Because house is kind of technical sampling. And I got involved, and I met Marshall Jefferson in some kind of way. They needed some vocals on a track. This is 1986 we're talking about. And I went in and did like some background vocals for the record. And they ended up discussing that the other girl's voice wasn't whatever. I ended up singing the song and went back in my experiment with university, and decided to press the record, to press it ourselves, myself and one of the professors and someone else. And we just did like maybe 100 copies, maybe 200. And somehow they got in the hands of these DJs from England. I used to go back and forth. They sent my record over there, and I ended up calling someone over there for some reason. And I was like, "Can I come to England?" I'm fast forwarding and skipping quite a lot, just for time's sake. And I just said, "Well," I was like, "My name's Kim Azell," and da 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 da. And the agent said, "Are you Kim Azell that made Taste My Love?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Do you know you have a #1 record over here?" And I was like, "I got a #1 record." I'm thinking, wow. They're like, "Would you like to come over and do a show?" And I'm like, "I've been waiting all my life to like come over and do a show," which was, you know, absolutely amazing, mind blowing. Obviously, fast forward, I was #1 on the underground radio, which was pirate radio, which we knew nothing about. It wasn't even their mainstream. It was because mainstream got too mainstream, which you would know because of punk, and things went underground. So they had a whole underground scene. And what was house, our broken records that hadn't even developed or matured yet, was fueling their pirate radio, their underground raves, and a lot of this stuff, which I was like, wow. I came and did my little bit, and some record company people were there, and ended up after a while they asked me to sign a deal, which was house music's first major label recording deal. It was myself, me, and hence the first lady of house, and so much other things went on in that. That's trying to break the story down as short as I can. But
then,
yeah, that's how that happened. And just being, you know, getting the education too, and understand how the industry works, and taking all the opportunities, because I commuted from Chicago from Gary to Chicago on the South Shore. See, my brain is still over in the UK, but on the South Shore train line. I picked the train up right there from Clark Road, actually, because it would stop right at Clark Road City Airport, they call it, and go to Chicago and come back, and, you know, just really kind of do my thing, got prepared. And I think growing up in Gary, I know growing up here where I grew up basically prepared me for so many things that you don't even foresee. It's been a great, great training ground, and obviously a place that I really love. So even when at my height of my career, selling millions of records and touring the world and fronting Soul to Soul and being a BET and the Grammys and being nominated for Grammy, blah, 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 I'd always come home. As a matter of fact, I'd even go shopping in the Village and wear some of that stuff on the red carpet and say, "Who are you wearing?" And I was like, I wouldn't say anything. I just smile and send a picture to my mom. She's like, "Kimberly, did you get that from them?" I was like, "Yeah, I just dolled it up, you know, get somebody to put a piece of lace up, you know, one side and put some pearls on it or something else." and I used to get a giggle out of that. I did, because all of these other people there, like this designer, that designer, and I mean, sometimes you do that, but I just go like, let me go get this piece, and you find really good stuff down there back in the day. So yeah, I'm a true Garyite. I really am, born bred and promote.
I mean, one of the things we could say in Gary, and specifically the West Side, there's been a vibrant street art and graffiti culture that goes back to the 90s. And a lot of those artists get claimed as Chicago artists. You're from Tolleson, you're in the Chicago house scene. And now we can say that Gary has, and the Village shopping mall specifically, has contributed to global fashion in some.
And it's true. It's absolutely true. I hadn't seen it that way, put it that way, but yeah, that's absolutely ironic and absolutely true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I one of the things, I mean, you've had big hits on the underground charts, but also the mainstream charts in England. I mean, I think you've had a top 10 hit on many decades since you've started. So yeah, I love hearing about the grounding you got in Gary. And you had mentioned briefly Steeltown Records. I guess we could do a little show and tell for the people. There was a record label based in Gary in the late 60s, and I think they made it to the late 70s, early 80s, called Steeltown. This was, I'm holding a 45 single from the Drifters, who were a very well-known doo-wop group. They were working with the local doo-wop person, Henry Farag, in the community. And Steeltown is known for putting out the very first, if I can get that, the very first Jackson 5 singles before they got signed to a major label. And
yeah, Big Boy was one of the first records.
I'm a big boy now. And this one is We Don't Have to Be Over 21 to Fall in Love, backed with a jam session that actually has the patriarch Joe Jackson playing guitar on this recording here.
That's great.
Yeah, I got it cheap because some kid drew marker all over it, so I barely paid anything. But what I love about this, it's got the address on Taney Street, and that's where you grew up at. So you're just down the street from where this local record label is signing acts like the Jackson 5, the Ripples and Waves, the Drifters.
The Drifters are coming there to record. Gladys Knight, I remember her coming on the block when I was a little kid. And, you just hear lots of music and various musicians from, everywhere, like Lonnie Garrett, who was the local drummer. He was a drummer for Earth, Wind & Fire, a session drummer for Steeltown Records for 98.6, which was another local Gary band. We had so many groups when I was growing up, like in the 70s. And of course, we had many clubs just down 11th Avenue, 15th Avenue, just loads and loads of live music. And obviously, of course, they were still doing theater and some live music concerts at the Westside High School, in the auditorium there, at the Genesis Center. The Genesis Center would have concerts like Parliament, Funkadelic, Phyllis Hyman, Prince, you name it, and those people would come through there. So someone said they knew Gordon Keith. Yeah, he lived on the block. So just music everywhere. You had the Kinsey Report, Big Daddy Kinsey, Donald Kinsey. Donald was like really one of my mentors. Donald played guitar for Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. Toured with them and did a lot of stuff with those bands. So it was just, incredible. And, another thing, I didn't just stay in music because I had so much going on in my brain. I, went into education, as you know, when I come, but because of COVID, I wasn't able to teach this time coming home. But I do quite a lot of teaching with the local schools, mentorships, and have been an artist in residence with the Aspire School, and developed a program with Mr. Thompson, where we called LEAP. We only got to do it once because of COVID again. We took a group of young people here from Gary over to London. I was the London connection, to have I think they were there for 6 days, 7-day trip. A friend of mine was running the musical in the West End called Thriller. live, which was about Michael Jackson. So they were able to see that musical, which was really brilliant. It's such a shame that the West End is totally closed due to COVID. Not one show is running since March. So it's been a different dynamic. I heard you speaking to some of the other panelists about, you know, different avenues and different things you have to do as an artist. I was pivoting already, you know, with doing education and sort of doing master classes in the UK, also, you know, podcasting, but it's like turned into almost like a full-time thing that you have to really feed and really promote and keep your voice out that way. So, which, you know, every now and then, you know, you might need to recharge, as they say, your batteries. And I mean, it's nothing like making you recharge than a world pandemic.
Right. Yeah. And you get to experience on two sides, really. You're getting, you know, over
I'm
there.
getting double because, like I said, I had a couple flights canceled. I was supposed to come out in June. I couldn't travel till September. And but American Airline, they honored my flight every time I book it and they recancel. They keep honoring it, which was fine. But it was a bit daunting because my mind and my, you know, we were thinking, oh, I'm not gonna get back. Oh, what's going on? And then of course, when you get back, you've got to quarantine again, and then you go into a whole nother lockdown mode. Here in the U.S., like I said, not being able to go to the school here and engage with the young people I've always engaged with. I love the signs in the background, Sam. Somebody loves your signs in the background. So yeah, so that's been one of the things. It's like, oh, I'm on lockdown again.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's unbelievable. It really just derailed plans for all of us. And no matter what stage your professional career is at, you just get affected by that. So, you know, I'll say again, what's gotten us through are the arts and creativity. It might just be listening to a podcast or a TV show or watching a movie. All of that stuff was produced by a creative. And once
Exactly.
again, thank you to the Calumet Heritage Partnership for supporting creativity in the Calumet region. Because I think,
Absolutely.
you know, I think all of us on this panel tonight, you know, we kind of recognize that, first of all, for young people, it's really difficult down here in Northwest Indiana. And most of us go up to Chicago to get networks and get contacts and perform and whatnot. So when you get a pulse going down here, and Kim, as you were talking about music, it made me think about all the concerts my dad went to, those clubs. He was really into blues in the 50s and 60s. And, you know, just, he would tell me about all the musical culture in Gary and all the people he met, John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. People don't tend to think of Gary as this like pulse. And part of that, I think, is because we got Chicago up here and Indianapolis down here, and we kind of get overlooked, but it's that pulse, that culture is so strong here.
And it still is. Gary's a mecca, and like these two, yourself and these other ladies on the panel, you know, there are things that we could create or that are created here right now, even during COVID, to harness this talent. Even during this time, there are places where kids can engage, and we must sort of tell each other, if you know about something that I don't know about, let them know and get it out to the children so they won't, you know, get frustrated, because Gary is an amazing place, full of talent, full of forestry, full of life, full of all of the, you know, beach culture, art culture, education, and just regular working people as well. Lots of fiber and value. I mean, I've come from that, and to come back home this time and honor my dad and do different things, I saw that the same, it exists. People were looking to be watered. They were looking to be watered, but just a little bit of water, and it's like, you know, the flower just comes right back up. So I just wanted to add that. Don't give up out there if y'all from Gary. No. We still got it going on.
That little, well, it wasn't a block party, that memorial naming in honor of your father that we did last weekend. I believe I overheard the mayor say that was the best attended honorary street naming the city's ever had. Did you hear anyone say that?
I heard someone say something, but wow, does it all often go like this? And during COVID,
And
you know, I
everybody
think,
masking up, yeah, and being good
yeah,
about
and
it.
everyone had a mask on. You know, I made sure that social distance was there. We had the hand sanitizers, had like refreshments and individual things. So you get your one little Capri juice or your water, and everything was individual, homemade, bakery, individually wrapped, little crisp and chips. And the elders were there, made sure they had seats. So they, you know, all our silver surfers, they were there, and the young people, the City of Gary employees. It was really, thank you, Gary, Indiana, you know, and Tolliston area.
It felt
Yeah.
it felt like a block party in some ways, because not because it wasn't like a celebration. There wasn't,
It did feel like a block party.
but everybody seemed to know each other and know each other so deeply. In fact, there were people who, oh, I hadn't seen my cousin in years, and here we are today. Um, Kim, I want to say, I know people in Gary who know of you, and maybe they don't know you personally, but they know who you are, and they also know who your father was, but they don't know the connection between the two, and they're so amazed. And then after that, they're like, "Yeah, that I could see that there." Could you share a little bit about your father, John Grigsby, for us?
Well, you know, my dad was a very noble man, very honorable. Um, he um, he also was a pioneer. Maybe that's where I get the pioneering spirit from. Um, you know, he felt that Gary needed representation, the Black community back in the 60s, and because so many had migrated here from the South and were working in steel mills, and we still didn't have a representation. So at that time, I think Richard Gordon Hatcher was a young lawyer and doing some things in the community. And I don't know how my dad, and he crossed paths, but my dad went to him and said, you know, you should run for office. And of course, Richard Hatch looked at him and laughed and said, "You must be mad. That's so funny. That'll never work." So what my dad did, he went out after work, and Mayor Hatcher would tell the story in the wintertime, and gathered signatures, sort of, you know, campaigning for him. And I think he gathered over about 10,000 signatures. And then one day went to his office and said, "You should run, and here's why." And then, of course, the rest is history. Richard Gordon Hatcher did run. He won that election, and they stayed friends for so long. My dad was basically, he was very kind and very quiet. He didn't, you know, seek accolades. He looked after this community, and as Judge Monroe said, he made sure people had food that needed food and jobs. You know, he would connect people, young people, with something to do, to, you know, and give them incentives and pride, and instill pride in them. And, you know, I really, really love that. The amount of times the phone would ring at midnight, you know, "We need you to come for something." Or as he would have us go door to door with the flyers and leaflets about voting. He made sure everybody was registered to vote. You could not live in this precinct and not be registered to vote. So, you know, he would do that. And I noticed that sometime he might look like at the house to see what the conditions were. I took it further. I'd go in the house and sit down with the people and start talking as a young teenager. And if I saw something like, "Dad, it was cold in there," or "I didn't, they seem like they don't have any food," I tell him. And, you know, he'd find out if they needed heat. He'd find out if they needed food, and he'd go get that done. Just from you know, being close. When communities knew each other that much, you know, you'd know if your neighbor needed something, or if this and that, and you just feel that need. And there was no reason to feel shame or shy about anything. You just, you need that, okay, I got you. You need that, I got you. You didn't even have to ask. So that was something that I learned, I think, and I picked up from him. But we honored him last week, as you said, with the city honored him as well with an honorary street naming and a memorial community garden 30 years after 30 some odd years after his passing. And it's something that I had hunted. It took me quite a long time to get it done, because it was a lot of emotion for me to even start the wheel running, because I couldn't deal with a lot of the psychological and emotional things of losing my dad and all of that. So, but this has been, it's given us some peace, and it brought the neighborhood back together. And as you said, everybody has been really buzzing, and most people said, Kim, this honor should have been done. Like, I was like, yeah, but I didn't have the strength to do it then. So we've got it now, and I'm really excited to make that space really lovely, a place where, the neighbors and the block club can come in, like an urban garden, do some things there, a nice wall mural. I've been speaking to Decay Devils to help me do like, a nice graffiti wall or something with some art on it, tree, and then that way the whole community can come in and plant some vegetables or peppers or whatever they want to do, or just sit on the bench and, and that and reflect and feel good about their neighborhood, feel good about their block.
Well, what I found amazing was I thank you, first of all, for letting me be part of that process. I mean, being with you at City Hall for those presentations. And I just was so inspired. So the story for all of our listeners out there, I think she only needed 50% of the people on her block to sign off on this, and you got over half the people in the whole ward.
Yeah.
So thousands of more signatures than you actually needed. And it just shows, I love that community organizing spirit. I mean, this is what's kept and sustained the city, are those neighborly relations. And I've always tried to maintain that with my presence here, be neighborly to one another. So to see that and to be part of that was really a beautiful thing. So thank you, Kim. And what I love, Kim, is here I have this friendship with a great pop star. And what do? We go to the library, we talk about teaching the kids. I think that is absolutely wonderful. And once again, I just have these conversations with all three of these amazing panelists. So with that, I want to thank all three of you. And again, just stress that not only are you my friends, you're absolutely wonderful people to collaborate with. So we'll keep doing it.
Can I mention my podcast so people can tune in?
Oh, yeah, please.
So it's Kim Mazzell, and I'm on Spotify. So you can just put in Young Hearts Run Free is the name of my podcast, Kim Mazzell. It's also on Apple Music and a few others, but Spotify is easy for you to find. You can also donate or sponsor if you'd like to. So come and tune into my podcast, Young Hearts Run Free, Kim Mazzell on Spotify. That'd be great.
And do you have a new album for download?
I have a single out now called A Place in My Heart on Defected Records. I was going to sing it there, but then the sound man had to go, and that was really great. But it's out now on Defected Records, remixed by Low Stepper. So that was really good. I am Grammy nominated, and I have won a few awards for different things. The group I was in, Soul to Soul, and et cetera, et cetera. But A Place in My Heart is, Gary is a place in my heart. So, so it's good to be here.
Good to have you here. So I have not been paying attention to the chat box as we've been talking because it distracts me. So I just tuned that little bit on the bottom of my phone out. I'm hoping Mario has been checking. So he may have some questions. And if our guests want to unmute, I think we can all manage to not talk over each other. I hopefully can just be quiet. And Mario, did we get some questions or comments?
Well, I have an initial question for Kim too. Could you tell us where is the honorary street named for your father, and where is the garden?
Oh, that's on 10th and Taney in the Tolliston area.
Okay.
Tolliston, Tolly Man, they call it now, but just off 11th Avenue, just down the street from this picture.
Okay. Cool. So we have a question here. Let me open this back up. So this is from Sarah Coulter. It's really wonderful to see the three women and artists. Wondering if all of you might share a little about who inspired you to become artists or mentored you in your work.
Is that on me or one of the other ladies going to take it?
Tara, why don't we start with you?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a mentor who passed away a few years ago by the name of Dr. C.S. Weber. Um, he was a very influential person in my life. However, before Dr. Weber influenced me, I would have to say my father, because my father is a singer, a songwriter, but he was the one who also told me stories about Gary, because my father used to come to Gary and perform as well. So he's been in contact with the big artistry scene that was out here in Gary. But it's during the years as I was growing up, when I was younger, my father would be writing his music and working on his music, and uh, I would be in the studio with him, and sometimes he would run something by me and say, "Hey, T, what do you think of this?" And so I was always exposed to my father's artistry, but it was never, I don't think he ever intended for me to follow in his footsteps. So he never pushed any of his children to follow in his footsteps. It's just something that just kind of happened. But I think with me most of all, because when I was in elementary school, I was very inquisitive. I was probably the most inquisitive out of all of the kids. So I was always reading something and saying, "What's this? Or what's that? Or what does that mean?" So when I was like 11, my father told me, he gave me an assignment. I had to report to him every Friday to make sure so he knew that I did this. Every time I came across a word that I didn't know, I had to look it up, know how to spell it, know what it meant, know how to use it properly in a sentence. And if I didn't come across anything, then I had to get the dictionary and find something to look up. And it could not be at my grade level. So he said, no baby words. And like I said, to make sure that he knew that I was doing this, I had to report to him every Friday. So that stuck with me. And I didn't feel like it was a punishment. So, but it was like fast forward years later, I don't think my father realized what he did by doing that. And it was like in elementary school, I first started writing poetry, I think in 8th grade, because of a creative writing assignment. And it just really lit a spark. So it just kind of went from there, but it transformed over the years, and it took on a life of its own, and I had no control over it. It started to control me, but I never denied it, but I don't think I ever embraced it the way I have over the past several years. So I would, so as I said, I would have to say my father, because I don't think my father never pushed me to be like him. He never said anything that he expected us to be like him. And my father was a fantastic singer. He's still in the music business now at the age of 80. Uh, but that influence is still there. So when I'm writing something, I always run it by my father and ask him what he thinks.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you.
Crystal, you want to tell a little bit about where you got your start and a little bit of your mentorship?
Yeah, so I was like a little hip hop baby. So I've always been like a very hip hop influenced poet. And I returned to hip hop as an art form when I got a little older. My main influences music wise would probably be like Lauryn Hill, Nas. I really like Wu-Tang Clan and Lupe Fiasco. And my personal mentor is, of course, Davine Stewart. She showed me what a professional poet looked like on a personable level. And she really, really helped me along and, got me where I actually met Sam through her. And, a lot of the people I met when I was a teenager and some of the opportunities I got were because of her. So definitely she's been my main mentor throughout my life. And also I got the opportunity. So I actually went to Columbia College too. And I got
All
to
right now.
yeah. I did music business and like creative writing poetry, and I got to work with Jason J Rock Evans, that was actually one of the head of A&Rs for First and 15th, which is Lupe Fiasco's label. And he got to really just pour into me as an artist, like teaching me like a lot more about the business specifically. And yeah, like those two people have like poured into me like constantly, just throughout some of my youth or whatever. So Davine Stewart, Jason J Rock Evans, and hip hop, that's my influences.
All right.
Good
So Kim,
influence. well, definitely my parents, my mom and my dad. My mom she ran her own business, a small business. She was a barber, and her barbershop was here in Tolleson area as well, just around the corner from the house. So I saw her, sort of like have her own business, and even though it didn't register to me that she was having her own business as a young kid, but after a while, as a person, as an older person, I thought, oh, that's something I could do even with music, have like a little small boutique kind of label thing. I wasn't like trying to do like bigger, things like that give me a headache. But watching my mom and my dad just, work in the community. And then I must say, as an artist, my mentor was Yvette Marie Stevens, AKA Shaka Khan. So
Oh,
I really, really learned a lot from her music. I listened to it like a lot, like her cadences and how she wrote stories and saw things. And then, unbeknownst to me, we ended up meeting in London and became roommates. So it got really, I got hands-on, sort of like, and she was very honest, uh, and so cool a person, watch this, watch that, don't believe that, don't believe that. What did they say to you when they called you? Tell me exactly how they said it. Okay, this is what that really means. So, don't believe the hype kind of a mentor. So that, and I, I got a chance to work with her, sing with her on stage and things like that, and just kind of see an inside view. So I must say, her, and maybe even the Manpower program mentored me working, doing the lots in the summer, and beautifying Gary, because I learned a lot doing that too. Miss Harvey was the supervisor, and I was like the little her assistant, and just going to different sites, and the stories she would tell me while you're working, building a work ethic, um, how to hold yourself as a woman, just different things. So yeah.
cool, cool. So, Sam, there was a reference in the chat to the signs behind you. You want to tell us a little bit about what that is we're seeing?
Sure. These are signs with excerpts from the Gary Anthology, and they were produced by the Decay Devils, which was an organization you heard Kim mention. They're a really cool organization here in Gary that started as urban explorers, and they have taken on many facets of art, preservation, all kinds of things. They're doing really cool bike tours around the city right now, which is good because, again, we've not been able to connect and do programs and events the way we have. So they found a healthy way to get people around the city and get out and get connected. So we produce these. They're on aluminum. They're about 3 feet by 4 feet, and we're just very slowly installing them at places around the city. Tara's is up at Reese Park, which is just a bit west of downtown. And, I'll say I have a website, ourgarystories.com, that I run with my buddy Chris Harris, and we'll have a posting up there, probably, hopefully, about this conversation and the book,
Yeah.
and these signs as well. So yeah, aren't they beautiful? I told Tyrell, he said, what do you want them to look like? And I said, something like British highway signs. And he literally just went to the first design he found and took little, the swoop and the blue and the white. We put the text on it. So I think they look really good. Blue's a color you don't see too much in Gary. We wanted something that really stood out. So thank you to the Decay Devils, as well as Legacy Foundation, Knight Foundation, Indiana Arts Commission, the City of Gary, and Belt Publishing for supporting the production of these.
All right. Yeah, Reese Park has recently just gotten a new playground. It's gotten a new native garden. I don't know, Tara, is your sign somehow associated with those other new elements? Are they together? Are they separate?
They are now.
That's a good question, and I have to be honest. Other than a picture, I have not been there yet, and I keep saying I've been so busy the past few weeks that the past couple of weeks that I haven't had a chance to really stop by there, because I keep saying that I'm going to actually go and do video and definitely take some pictures. But I did share it on my Facebook page. But when I found out about the sign, I was like, that is so dope. That is just totally awesome. So it was a wonderful surprise. And yes, my, you know, big ups to the Decay Devils. I love the work that they're doing. I love the fact that they chose to do something in connection with the Gary Anthology, and, you know, put, you know, some of these excerpts from the book on display for the authors like that. So to me, I see the whole thing connected, because it's like, I am so about promoting Gary as well as protecting Gary. I mean, and it's like, I guess one of the reasons why people think I'm from Gary, because it's like when somebody badmouth Gary, I get angry. I get angry and I defend Gary. But I am an artist at heart, and I do different types of artistry. So, you know, something like that is really right up my alley. And I mean, but whether it be my work or someone else's, you know, I like promoting things like that. So, I mean, if there's anything, someone say, hey, Tara, you got an idea, or can you do something to, you know, to add to this, I would be all for it. So most definitely.
Okay, very cool. Well, it was totally heartening for me to just get to meet all you lovely people and hear your enthusiasm for your city and your arts, and just really, I hope that somehow we can keep this going in some way. You're all part of this national heritage area, and what's nationally important about Northwest Indiana, Gary, the whole region that tends to be described as gritty, but you know, gritty comes in many forms. So yeah,
We like gritty.
yeah, we like gritty, but we got to realize it has a whole spectrum. So everything's included in that. So thank you again. And then I just want to tell everybody that we are back with the last installment of Calumet Heritage Conference tomorrow night. And that what we're going to be having is the history of the Mexican-American Workers mural in Blue Island. And that's going to be a chat with a bunch of the artists that worked on that mural. And they're going to talk about their inspiration and the reasons for making it and all of that. And that'll be our last installment. So thanks to all of the audience for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow.
All right, thank you, and my love to all of you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.